All right. Like your glasses.
Yeah, this is my Valentine's fit. Got the red shirt,
Yeah.
got the smooth red glasses.
I have really bad anxiety, and when it got really bad, I actually
Yeah.
had to buy like pink tinted glasses because I couldn't go into
Oh
like
wow.
stores, like that kind of lighting.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. Fun fact.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun fact. How does it feel to be so weak?
So this is unusual.
Yes.
It's
It is.
just us again. So
We had a special guest lined up and they had to cancel. They were not feeling good. It's it's a lot to be on our show. I
I
mean,
know
it's a lot of pressure for these writers. They know that this could make or break their career.
we ask those hard-hitting questions that really embarrass people, and then we make memes about
We
them,
do.
and just endless about our guests. And so, yeah, I mean,
I am I am excited for this interview though, just because oh man, we got permission ahead of time to just go crazy on the pictures. I mean, this is a great writer, phenomenal writer, great sense of humor. I'm just so excited.
and
Eventually when we get to do the interview.
yeah, and I ordered. I don't want to give anything away, but I ordered
Hmm.
their book last
Hmm.
night because I read through their book and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is really
Yep.
good stuff. And so I'm so excited because I this is
Yeah.
like the best part of this whole project of ours is when we
Hmm.
make like discoveries.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel embarrassed because sometimes, someone will bring a poem to the table or whatnot, and I had
Hmm.
not heard of the poet, and then I'm like, oh, where have I
Hmm.
been? Like, I feel like I'm in this. Like, I feel like I should know who this is, and I
Yeah.
don't. So I feel embarrassed, like I'm not well read enough. And I feel embarrassed that I didn't know about this poet because they are writing some really great things. So I'm very much looking forward to when we finally sit down and be able to talk.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
don't
Well,
have a
let's
poem to discuss. We don't have much of anything.
No, no, we are just here because we have free time blocked out.
It's
We don't know
blocked
what to do
out.
with ourselves.
We could maybe have a little discussion because I want to know your thoughts on some things that
Yeah,
have been going on in what the kids call POBIZ.
I will begin. Welcome to Table for Deuce, where we shoot the shit about all things lit. With me, as always, is Kate Hanson Foster. She is the co-founder of Table for Deuce, the co-editor of The Seat, Poetry and Reviews, which is our journal. She's the author of Midriff, the finalist for the Massachusetts Center for the Book Award, and her latest book is Crow Funeral. Kate has been busy, 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 busy lately. So she has actually been going around to all the local libraries around her region, correcting Gulf of Mexico and actually putting Gulf of Kate, because I guess we could just rename whatever we want now. So Kate has taken it upon herself to to go around letting everyone know the real name of the
I have
Gulf.
I have been campaigning now for about 8 years to make America Kate again, and it hasn't worked. Gulf of Kate, which is good.
I
Would
mean,
have
it has a ring. It's got a
yeah,
nice ring to it.
sure it has a nice Costco. Like I think it's probably a really nice place. I had to write out your bio in the long form because I was
Oh wow.
pulling some info off the internet about you, as I like to do. So Michael Schmeltzer, which we already know, is a poet, editor, website designer. He runs a press, he fathers children. He's all around a stellar literary citizen. And so back in 2015, Michael's collection of poems, Elegy Elk River, won the Floating Bridge, um, or sorry, yeah, Floating Bridge Press Chapbook Contest. Sorry, it's like a mouthful. When he was asked about paying the submission fee, so after you won this, right, you said you would pay the submission fee for someone else to enter the contest, someone from a traditionally underrepresented background. So anyways, you were in a in an interview and someone asked you about it, and Michael said, literary citizenship is a very integral part um, as my identity as a reader, a writer, editor. I want to be of service to the writing world, and I try to move forward with that in mind, which I thought was very admirable. And I did also want to mention, because I mentioned in the last episode when I was
Mhm.
when I was doing your bio, the last episode, Michael also recently joined Elon's Doge Bro team. And so this has been an ongoing thing, and I've, been watching you do this. Um, so together with Mr. Musk, Michael is helping use previously wasteful federal funding to work on a poetry residency on the moon. And so, because I think there's one thing that will unify the country and that we can all agree
It's
on is that poets belong on the moon. And so you're
they
working to make that happen.
absolutely. And here's the thought: if we're all on Earth writing about the moon, will the moon residency will have poets just writing about the Earth? That's
Ooh,
that's mind blowing.
writing about the earth, it'll be the new cliche. Like, why is it for
It
the
will be.
write about the earth?
Oh, what's up with poets? Poets in the Earth. Oh,
Not
so
another
sick of
earth
it.
poem. But anyway, there's been some chatter on the internet, the Facebook, the Twitters, the places about
Hmm.
awards. And so I don't know, it got me thinking about this idea of literary citizenship. I mean, it's a valid argument, right? Like some people are
Hmm.
repeatedly given all of the accolades, or they're always being anointed. We see the same names
Hmm.
all the time. But I don't, so people, some people get mad about that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, the system is a little flawed in that way. I don't know. For me, it's the introspection, thinking about, okay, well, how am I, like, what am I doing as a literary citizen, and how am I
Hmm.
participating? Or am I just sitting back and being sad that I haven't won like all the big awards, or like that,
Yeah.
oh, like, why don't you see me? Like, why not
Hmm.
me? So I don't
Yeah.
know. Tough one, because there's a lot of problems, I think, with literary
Hmm.
awards. Um, most of it, you could say it's a funding tool like for just small presses who just want to stay
Hmm.
afloat. So they can
Yeah.
prize and generate a little bit of funding and highlight somebody and lift them up. On
Yeah.
the other hand, the big, the standard big poetry prizes usually always go to the known top dogs, and if it's
Hmm.
not so often you see somebody that like, oh my gosh, like I never even heard of this person and they won like the National Book Award. What? Like that, it just, you don't see that as much.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the Grammys. It's just a poetry. Like it's kind of an inside deal.
Yeah. No, it is a balance, I think, between kind of the known presses and the known poets. And a part of it, I think, is just a process issue. I mean, it takes money to send books out, to nominate them even in a lot of places. And I think some of those barriers are really difficult for smaller independent presses. Like they don't necessarily have the hundreds of dollars to spend submitting books to places. I know some of the awards, if you've ever looked into like post-publication book awards on your own, I mean, some of these places require fees just to submit, just to nominate. I think there are valid arguments to be had about trying to make the playing field more equal. A lot of the people I hear have those conversations seem to have the wrong motivations for it, though. It's not necessarily that they have a, even though they're complaining about who's winning, it's more like they're complaining that they're not winning. And
Mm.
that is very consistent, kind of a undertone to a lot of these arguments. And like, there are places that I think deserve to be called out. Just recently, that was it Narrative magazine that
Ooh,
decided that they weren't choosing a winner
that's
for
crazy.
one of their poetry contests. Yeah, they have finalists, but no winner.
Okay, like here's this is the thing though. I kind of love that a a magazine would say everything we got just wasn't it. Like it wasn't it. And we don't want
Yeah.
to name a name for the sake of naming a name. And that's pretty
Hmm.
respectable, but you gotta refund those submission fees then.
Yeah.
You can't just
It's it's
keep the submission fees. You gotta refund them. So like I'm kind of
yeah.
like, yes, let's say we didn't get good stuff. Nothing hit the mark.
Hmm.
So, but you have to do your due diligence to make it right, because otherwise it's like, okay.
Yeah. And I don't sub I haven't submitted to narrative, and I know even their general submissions I think are like wildly expensive if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
But if it's in their contest guidelines that says if we don't find something that we want to choose, we won't choose a winner. I think that's something they can do. I think that seems more ethical. But if they didn't mention that and they're just like, nah, we're not picking this year,
Yeah.
because I do agree fundamentally, like if there isn't something that really strikes you, I don't think you should feel forced to pick or publish something.
Mhm.
I think that seems like a fair thing. But it has to be stipulated that that is an option that the journal or press can do, and that the money will be refunded, because it just seems, not that these people would have won per se if they had to pick someone, but it just seems unnecessarily mean. You know what I mean? It just seems just kind of like a little bait and switch.
Yeah.
So,
It reminds
yeah,
me
just,
like the previous conversations that we've had too about like the excess. Like there's so much
mhm,
excess in the poetry world, like excess publishing, excess like people
yeah.
turning out their own books, like excess promotion, excess this. But
Mhm,
the so to me it's like, okay, I'm trying to think. In my mind, there's a journal, and maybe it doesn't even exist anymore because that would make sense. But like a journal that doesn't publish on a regular schedule, they wait for
mhm,
the poems they love. Like, so it's not like you're beholden to a timeline of like everyone's expecting this issue at this specific time.
mhm.
Like I thought there was like a journal out there, and maybe I'm just making this up. Maybe we should be that journal, but
Yeah,
like
what is yeah.
where you just wait, and I guess
Mhm,
that's not so good for readership or anything, but it kind of just goes to show like how much, and I think to go back to the original impetus for this conversation, which was an essay that was
mhm,
recently published about about a very grievance based essay on being upset that this person hadn't won
mhm,
anything, when they say they write so many, like they've written so many poems, like thousands of poems,
mhm.
dozens of collections, like excess, like, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like if I'm writing so much, if I'm churning out all this content, like eventually, like I should be seen, I should be rewarded for it. Maybe if you are pushing out so much content and you're not feeling seen, maybe I'm not to say that you're not a good poet, but maybe go back to some of the stuff. Like, I don't know, like it's like I said, it's the introspection. Because that made when I read that, I
Yeah.
thought, okay, think about it. How do I think about it in terms of myself? Like, what is
Mhm,
my part? If I'm feeling like a lot of people aren't being heard or read or seen,
mhm,
and they're not. My first instinct is to prop them up, like promote them, like try and like
mhm.
do my part to say, oh my gosh, haven't you heard of Michael Schmeltzer?
Yeah, like I mean, we've done that for each other, like very
Yeah.
much so. And I think a lot of I've had this conversation with another writer here in Washington where we talk about there are these names that kind of get propped up, but at the same time, if you actually do interact with some of these people, or if you see them, I mean, most of the people, even the ones I kind of make fun of, like I like to talk about the bag of dirt from Kava, but when I actually did meet him and interact with him, he is a very generous person. And I've seen him interact with others like in person, and he will remember these very small details about what they emailed him or what they've said.
Mhm.
And that is, admirable. Like I have a terrible memory. I can't do that. But he has a knack for that. And I think part of why he is such an acclaimed writer is, yeah, he is very talented. And yeah, it's a certain kind of, what is that, the Streisand effect where you're known for being known. It just kind of goes, is that what it is? Or am I just making stuff up? But I think there's so much behind the scenes work that gets done that is impossible for us to know. And I think that's always a good, humbling moment to realize like everyone that you know is probably working just as hard as you are.
Hmm.
And if I hear that a writer has like a dozen books out and they're still talking about how they don't feel recognized,
Or
it seems kind of, yeah, it seems a little bit silly. I'm like, you got recognized with like a dozen books. That is recognition. Like some editor out there wanted to publish 12 of your books.
yeah.
I don't like, I have like three or four or something, whatever. And I'm like, I don't, that's even having one is like an amazing feat. But if you got to place those kind of negative feelings onto another writer in a way that is taking them down, and I get it that we do negative reviews and stuff like that. So it sounds a little paradoxical here, but I do think it's kind of really, really sitting with those feelings and wondering why. Because some of the writers that did get called out in this essay are really generous writers that pay attention to writers that they have no need to. Like, I mean, they are talking to
We
like
talked about
really
that a little
small
bit.
poets.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was, I mean, we could just say that, I mean, Diane Seuss, phenomenal writer, poet, so generous, so
Yeah.
humble. And
Hmm.
she's, I'm not an expert on her and her work or anything, but from what I understand, like she's
Hmm.
not one of these kind of academic elites that kind of just coasted through and just got book deal after book deal after book deal. I think she's actually
Hmm.
like probably one of the best success stories of somebody who just got famous for being good, like being good at what she does and being
Hmm.
recognized for it. And so to have her be name dropped in the essay as one of these like overly anointed poets, I think is was kind of a dig. And the other ones, I mean, yeah, they're like what, Billy Collins, Frank Bedard,
Yeah.
Frank Bedard,
Yeah, and Jericho Brown, I think, was another one.
Jericho Brown. Like, come on,
Yeah,
like
no,
that's silly.
yeah,
That's
it
silly.
it
A
does
bitch
it
about
does seem
Jericho Brown.
silly.
Like, I mean, you have to acknowledge, like some like these people, these are fantastic writers. So,
Yeah, they're actually good poets. Like a lot of them. Like I am more versed in some than others, but yeah, there isn't like I remember Jericho Brown from like way back, like 2 decades ago. He's, his first book or whatever came out. But I'm like, dude's been working for like 25 years on this stuff. It seems odd to say these poets are overrated. There are so many better writers out there, or not better, but writers that deserve the same amount of attention, and then not name a single one that other than yourself. That just seems like ego. That
I,
doesn't seem like community service or lit citizenship.
I've been
Hmm.
yes, I've inadvertently been burning some bridges for openly being kind of grossed out by certain poets, like openly whining about like I haven't been
Yeah.
this and I haven't been awarded this and I'm more
Hmm.
deserving and I'm this and I'm that. And it's like we
Yeah.
all have these feelings, we all have these low days. This is a very
Hmm.
difficult art to be in.
Hmm.
Poets are read by other poets mostly than any, in any other art form. You're
Hmm.
going to find that like the poets are the ones who are going to read you. It's very rare that you're going to find somebody who does not write poetry themselves, that they're just a huge fan of poetry. And so
Hmm.
we kind of like rely on each other to support each other. And I think in that way it becomes this strange tribal mentality, and this is where it's getting hard because say
Hmm.
15 years ago yeah, I wanted to buy every book and support all of my like fellow poets and stuff. But now when the publishing, like if you're publishing 4 books a year or like
Yeah.
or like you published a book and then in 6 months you're now releasing some collected 300-page edition of your I can't afford you.
Yeah.
Like I want to support, but I just can't. Like it's easier to publish now. Like you can print on
Hmm.
demand. Like so it's the
Yeah.
stakes are completely different. And so people need to
Yeah.
temper their expectations a little, I think, to say
Hmm.
like we all know this. This is
Yeah.
not new. Poets do not make money. Poets who
Yeah.
can make a career off of poetry either teach, they're
Yep.
in their communities doing community work, they're,
Hmm.
like they even they're plumbers. I don't know, like they're not like
Yeah.
mainstream of cash flow is not writing poetry for 100 hours a week. And so
Yeah.
you kind of have to stop and say, like, at what point is this about you as a poet and like your dissatisfaction with yourself and where you are versus
Hmm.
like the critique of the overall system. I don't want to keep bringing up like the Grammys, but the Grammys were just on like a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And the Grammys is probably like the best comparison of like art in some ways to like some of these
Hmm.
big poetry awards because the Grammys
Hmm.
is like such a it's such a industry dominated manipulated thing. Like it's not
Hmm.
the people's choice. Like it's political.
Yeah.
There's money involved. There's, insider
Hmm.
stuff going on. Beyonce she's won like 30 Grammys or something, but she's never won like the coveted album
Yeah.
of the year. And Jay-Z
Yep.
won some stupid award last year and he got up on stage and was like gave this big rant about how like why, like doesn't make any sense. Like why
Yep.
is this person who's put out so much material and she's a good artist and she's never won album of the year. Okay,
Hmm.
it's because in previous years, she's been up against other people who had better albums. But
Hmm.
this year, it's almost like everybody in the industry was like, fuck, we have to give it to Beyonce. Like for her like country
Yep.
album that like I only
Yeah.
know, like one song of, except my sister would argue different because she is obsessed with Beyonce. But like I feel like it's a political move. They gave it to Beyonce because the big wigs were pissed off and bitching, and they were like, "All right, let's pacify this. Let's give Beyonce
Yeah.
a Grammy this year."
I and I'm like, oh, I should have given it to Lemonade, not this one.
Right?
Everyone's gonna have differing opinions and stuff like that, which kind of makes it fun. But yeah, I was like, if I had to pick a Beyonce album, it would have been Lemonade for sure, hands down. But
Yeah.
I don't know why this year, but it's fine, whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be personal reasons, political reasons. There's going to be just smart moves on an organization's, decisions and blah blah blah. But yeah, I
It's
don't know. It's hard to get mired down in that. And part of that essay was like you write and you publish to get recognized. And I just think that as a motivation is the worst motivation to have if you're a writer. It just seems like there are so many different industries or different ways to get attention and recognition, and you just chose the worst one. I can literally go out at my local grocery store and scream and get more recognition.
there was a comment um on that essay by somebody, I don't know, who said something that resonated with me that was like the process of writing for me like isn't like you get the people who are like, oh, you write to write, you have to write, you write because you just have
Uh-huh.
to. But
Yeah.
I get the like that idea of I I write to be recognized like that. I want it to be beyond just for me. I want it to be for others as well.
Hmm.
But there was like a comment that I thought was so good, and it was like, for me, the process isn't complete until it is read. So that is like
Hmm.
part of the process. I write it for me. I
Mm,
create it. I do all that
hmm
stuff, but the process isn't complete until it's received by somebody else.
hmm
And it kind of goes through because that's the cycle, right? So when it's read by somebody else, it kind of completes that cycle. And that made sense to me. And I
Oh,
and I
I
like
like that. I do like that.
part of receiving something that you read, it's like conversing with it. And
Hmm
so I like that. But you're not owed it. Like, so
Yeah.
you write and you hope that it will be received, but it's not owed to you. And if you're
hmm
not getting it, then you need to stop and look at yourself. It's hard because I see both sides. I do. I really do see both sides.
Yeah. I mean, it is difficult, and I'm not sure if it's a matter of kind of a cultural divide here where I was publishing where there were no online journals. Like I've been publishing since my like I said 2 decades ago. I've been working on this, and it's like when you publish in a journal, like an actual print journal, you have no clue who's reading what or how they're responding. You just know that a reader or an editor read it and liked it enough to publish it, and that was where it ended. That was the cycle.
Yeah.
And so for me, I still think my natural life cycle of writing ends right there, where if it once it is accepted, then that's where it stops for me. I don't necessarily need the audience to tell me that they liked it in the same way that I think some other writers do. And I can see how it would get really, really just like you just get bogged down in wanting that little dopamine hit of people coming up to you and liking it and telling you that. And I mean, it's a nice feeling. I do get the frustration, but at the same time, I'm just like, I don't know, dude. God, you got like a dozen books. Like, I mean, is that if that's not enough for you to feel okay about your writing, I feel like nothing ever will be.
Yeah.
So
And
who
some things
knows?
take time. Like some people
Hmm
maybe that it's like you're not appreciated like right now, but maybe
hmm
give 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Like I mean, nobody can predict or dictate how art is going to converse with the world. And
hmm
if it's not talking to the world in the way that you want to right now, you either have to
hmm
wait for the world to change or you change. We have these political like awards, they're all, I don't say like they're rigged, but they're like obviously like they're, like the NEA, if that still exists. I think it's gone now, but if that still exists, it's judged by previous NEA winners. There's a lot of inside baseball happening, and
hmm
poetry being such a small art, we all know each other. You could read submissions blind, but chances are you're going to recognize, a lot of what's coming through on your desk. And
hmm
people will choose there's, the hot names right now, like the person who's, got a lot of clout right now. If you publish them, you're going to draw attention to yourself as a journal. I don't know how to change that because even if we had like a
hmm
choice award, you know what I mean? Like something like, because there's
Yeah.
like, instead of the Grammys would be like the Critics' Choice Awards or something like where you have, or the
hmm
word People's Choice, like where it's like the
Yeah.
people, masses get to
hmm
cast their votes. And that always ends up with like, not always, but surprising results because it's not like the inside industry stuff. I'm
hmm
not sure if we had that kind of a award for poetry where we could all cast our vote, if the end result would be any different. Because everybody wants to
Yeah.
laugh themselves to the big names, the big 10
Sure.
names in poetry that people are like,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna hitch myself to that wagon because
hmm
if I do, chances are,
Yeah.
maybe, like one day I will be one of them.
I think the closest we have to any kind of voting thing is like the Goodreads. Goodreads has like a little best book of the year type of stuff where they vote, I believe. But I don't know exactly which ones become like finalists that you get to vote on, or if they just tally it at a certain time of year, or just based on how many ratings it gets and then do like a finalist from there. I think one of the things that kind of drives me the most batty about the kind of grievances about these things is that like they're just because someone is a big name doesn't mean they're not talented. It's like the bigger the name, you kind of get this idea that like, oh, that's they must be overrated, right? The Ocean Vongs of the world must be overrated because they're so popular. And I don't I don't know. There's just that's just faulty. It's just a faulty premise. I don't, you know what I mean? It just doesn't seem right. I
I will say, if
like that.
we're doing like full honesty here, because
Mm,
when it comes to Ocean Vaughn, like I don't think he's overrated. I think he's over awarded for such a young guy.
mm,
I feel like
mm,
this guy's got a whole life ahead of him,
mm.
like pump the brakes.
But yeah, they kept writing like people publish names, not poems or something like that, and it's just I think you're targeting the poet because they have a big name. I'm like, target the editors then. Target the readers. I'm like, they're the ones publishing it then. Don't talk about the poets anymore. Don't talk about your Jericho Browns and your Diane Seuss's. Go to the journals and name drop those editors that are publishing these people. Be like, hey, New Yorker, you suck, or hey, this or that. Like, and have a conversation with them. Like
Mhm.
those are the decision makers. Like we would never here at the seat, Poetry and Reviews, we would never publish a name just for the name. Like, and I honestly believe that. I would feel really like I'd kind of feel sheepish if I had to reject a Jericho Brown poem that I didn't like, if Jericho would ever submit to us. Jericho Brown, submit.
Mhm.
But I mean, I would. If I didn't like the poem, I would reject it. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have a certain amount of, I think, like integrity as an editor. I think I owe that to every single person that submits. And a lot of the poems that we are publishing, that we will be publishing here, are from writers I've never heard of. And
Mhm.
I'm so excited to get their work out there.
Yeah.
Like, and they're exciting poems. And
Oh,
I agree that's where the essay goes. Like, it says the right thing. Yeah, there are plenty of poets out there that deserve a certain amount of spotlight. And I think it's our job as editors to find those poets. So call out the editors, dude. Like stop talking about the big poets. Call out the editors. Those are the decision makers. You want to talk gatekeepers and all that stuff? Keep calling out editors. Like we need better editors and better readers. That's all it comes down to.
I'll go so far to say that maybe the problem is too many editors let too much mediocre shit come through the gates. You have a false impression of your catalog of work as being phenomenal when maybe like as a whole it's not like it's not of the level that you think it is. Whenever I have big feelings about something, I
Hmm.
I take the time to think about like, all right, well, like what's the problem here? Aside from a broken
Hmm.
system, sure. Yeah, shit's flawed. It's all flawed. It's always
Hmm.
gonna be flawed playing with these kind of, especially now in the days of social media where like you get a very false idea. I mean, we have 41 subscribers on YouTube. We're like we
Weird.
we have been told that people want to hear us.
Yeah,
One,
we know.
maybe
I mean, I think we're
43
up to 43 now. So,
people think
yeah.
we are worth listening to.
Yeah.
That's huge for poetry. So
That's
we're awesome. And
yeah.
if I need to think about why we don't have 44 people, obviously
Hmm.
turn inwards and think, what could we do more? What could we do better? What are we doing wrong? Like, I don't know. I'm always thinking about
Hmm.
that. Every parts of my life.
Hmm.
Like, if something goes wrong, I'm like, who's the common denominator? And it's me.
Complaining without fixing the problem is drives me batty. It
Yeah.
really does. If like I said, if you think there's poets that are getting ignored, then constantly talk about those poets.
Mhm.
Like that's what you can do with your 40-hour
Yeah.
work week.
Yep.
Like seriously, just like spend your time doing that. Don't spend your time like being upset. Like and I will admit that's part of the reason why like this project really works for me. Because I got to a point where I was like so sick of poetry in the community and all that stuff too, for various reasons. And I needed a way to stay invested. And for me, the best way for me, like to feel like I'm doing something worthwhile is to talk about poetry and uplift poems I love and publish poems I love and work with writers that I know and don't know and try to get really good shit out there. And I spend a lot of time doing that, as you do. I mean, you do all the editing for these videos, you do a ton of stuff too. And it's because we love poetry.
Yeah.
And we could sit here and just talk about our books all the time and talk about what we're working on all the time, but we don't because that's not really like it doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't really help the community, I don't think. There's enough people that only want to talk about their own books. And there's nothing that I tune out quicker than someone promoting their own shit.
Well,
So,
and well, it's the generic networking too. It's like
yeah,
mass network mentality of being like, I'm going to be in every person's inbox and let them know what I'm
yeah.
doing, what I'm writing, what's next, blah, 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 blah. And it's like you think
Hmm.
you're networking, but you're really just spam. Like you're spamming that. And it's a it's a
Hmm.
numbers game, so
Yeah.
you can spam 100 people and 25 people caved and bought your book and you got 25 sales.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, like, did they buy it because they genuinely think you're good, or are you just like a pushy? Listen, I have had like debut, like my book, like the
Hmm.
reading, you go, you show up, no one's there. We talked about this with Matt
Yeah.
Me, you know,
Yeah.
like, we've all been humiliated, we've all been disappointed. I've cried on the way home from poetry reading.
Oh.
Yeah, like just nobody shows up. Like the epic one for me was like reading to like and it was actually like a pretty cool gig because they paid well. It was a library.
Yeah.
Libraries always pay well. But like,
Yeah, they do.
so I was invited. I probably told you this story a million times, but like I was invited to
Hmm.
read. My book was new. I went and I showed up and nobody showed up. Not a person, not a
Hmm.
soul. So they had to like page every worker in the library. We have like an emergency. You guys all have to sit in these folding chairs
Yeah.
for this girl who showed up to read her poems because
Yeah.
literally no one showed up. So I read to the library staff, and so it was
Yeah.
a horrible experience. However, they all
Yeah.
bought books, so I sold like a whole bunch of like sales like this. I went home.
Yeah.
I never would have made that many sales if I read to like
Hmm.
everyone else. You have to have rhino skin,
You
and
really do. Yeah. It's tough. And like you said, I think everyone should have one of those experiences as a poet, just reading to like an audience of people forced to be there.
yes,
Like it kind of realigns your vision for what we're doing and why we're doing it and stuff like that. I mean,
it's a
I
huge
don't know.
reality check because you can manufacture and you can easily get a false sense of self online. So like I could post
Hmm.
a poem and have 50 people like it and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, look at how many people like I affected with this poem and whatever."
Hmm.
And that's not reality. It's just not how social media works. It's not how the algorithms
Hmm.
work. It's just so like social media is not real life. So if you take yourself into a
Yeah.
real life situation and you stand in an empty room and read your poetry, like that is living.
Yeah.
That is like living hard poet life. Like if you're
Yeah.
pissed because you did so much social media like grinding where you're just, you
Yeah.
put into everybody's inbox and begging people to buy your book and if the numbers game
Hmm.
give you like a certain amount of turnaround, that's great, but it's not real life. It's just not.
One of the things that we have going for us, we have our little group chat and we have a really close little group. And that bond was formed like initially because I think we just loved each other's poems. Like I think that is such a key to building an authentic community is that we're honest about what we liked and what we didn't like so that when I say, Kate, I love your book, you can trust that it's not because I'm friends with you.
Yeah.
Like if you wrote something I didn't like, I would tell you because I'm like that. But I genuinely love your stuff. And I think like you need to have that basis. The people that just slide into your DMs because they have a new book out, like we know what you're up to, and that's fine. You need to hustle and you need to do that. But I know it's not based because on any sort of friendship, and that will only make me work so hard for someone.
Yeah.
Like if I feel like I'm being used, like I would rather have you be honest than act like you're checking in with me.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't
there are
know.
a lot of
It's
a lot of nice poets out there. Very probably
absolutely.
nicer than us. But
Oh,
like
for sure.
that they're going to boost you up like
Hmm.
constantly, and constantly
Hmm.
tell you what you did is brilliant and constantly share and like your work and and that's good for them. But I often wonder about the people who do it and don't mean it, and the the phenomenon that it creates in this whole like just in with the art in general, like the
Hmm.
phenomenon of over affirming your friends or over affirming your acquaintances and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just I have like a personal policy. If I'm going to like something or comment on something, it's because I
Hmm.
mean I mean it.
Yep.
Like I'm not going to just do it because oh, like so and so, oh, we all know this poet. They have a new poem. Like I'm gonna hop
Yeah.
on the like train. Like no, if I don't like it, I just keep scrolling.
And I've said this about multiple different industries. If you want to change it, the really difficult part is to like immerse yourself in that industry and get to a place of influence, become a decision maker. You don't like the way this press is running their thing, then go volunteer or go work and then try to become some kind of executive level person where you can make decisions to change how they operate. But that takes a long time. It might not pay off. I mean, it's not as glamorous as going online and shitting on a thing and feeling self-righteous. I mean, it
Or
really isn't.
Or there's also like our approach, which is like we are friends, we love each other's poetry, we love poetry, we
Yep.
love talking about poetry, and we love our personalities. Like so we bring, it's like we're not going to just try to become a publishing platform or a platform of poetry discussion. We want it to have a personality so that like
Hmm.
we are recognizable, that it's not like the same universal like affirmation machine. Like we're just out here talking about the stuff that we love and the topics that we're interested in. And we're stupid
Yep.
and we fumble and we
Yeah.
screw jokes or whatever. But like we get to be ourselves. And there's something so freeing in that to just like, okay, let's just be ourselves, do what we love, and
Yep.
like curb our expectations. Like every time we get a new subscriber, obviously I get so excited, but I don't
Yeah.
expect everybody to love it or want it or whatever. But hope
Yeah.
that organically we might grow into something that would be a cool community for people that feels genuine and not like the rest of the pobes.
Yeah. I mean, it's we don't have any pretensions about what we do or who we are. Like we're just two people that enjoy each other's company and enjoy poetry. And the everything we do is just an extension of that. We're not trying to get, even though it was really cool that Poets and Writers did like do the little clip of our interview with Matt. I'm not gonna lie, that was great. That was a lot of fun to see. But that's, I mean, it came and went, and I'm happy it did. It doesn't make me feel any different about what we do. I'm still gonna be stupid. You're still gonna make ridiculous comments. Like it is what it is. And the people that kind of vibe with that, they'll come to us and submit, and that's great. And that's what we're looking for.
I'm not going to say we're like super high in demand, but we've had a lot of DM slides.
We've had more than I've expected.
A lot of people asking to be on, and we're kind of like, well, we do have a schedule and everything, but this one person, we just
Yeah.
we moved everything because this person's so interesting, and it's like, what a
Yeah.
happy like thing to happen. Someone,
Yeah. We're
and
so excited for this person too. And it's like I had heard their name before. So when they messaged us, I was excited. but I'm like, okay, I know the name, but I don't know specifically what I've read. So I did a little research before responding because that would dictate how I responded. And yeah, I genuinely like their work, which is always just so nice to be like, oh, good, yay! Like we don't have to reach out to people and like be like, please be on our show.
Yeah,
Like they came to us and we like it. Like
exactly.
perfect.
So that's, I don't know. You gotta take the small wins, right? Like
Yeah,
you don't it doesn't have to be a big award to be a win.
it's the little things, it really is, that hopefully can sustain you. And for the person who wrote that essay, like, yeah, we're digging on it a little bit, but all those comments in support, like, that should last. That should make you feel great for like years. Like, thrive on that. Like, dozens of books published, all these supportive comments, like, that's a certain amount of notoriety and fame, like that.
That's a win. That is a win. Like it's
Yeah.
a different kind of win, but it's still a win.
And there are people out there, like, even if it's one person that is probably reading the work, being very moved and very touched, and that is feeling very changed because of what you wrote. And that's a great thing. You don't, it's out there. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not out there. So, you know, despite our kind of ranting, like we do want people to keep reading and keep writing and all that. So don't, it's difficult, but we're, despite sometimes roasting poets, we are always rooting for them to keep going. So
Oh
all right, that's our show. That's our little mini impromptu show because our guest canceled, so we had to work on the fly.
no, we didn't
So
no toast to roast or anything. We're just
nah, we're just being buds, just hanging out because we have free time.
we blocked off this time, and damn it, it's not gonna go to waste.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going back to my kids.
This is a good like momentum building episode to get excited for our next guest and to just keep it on with what we're doing.
That's right. And just because I'll take my own advice, a poet that I recently started reading, who also does a different podcast called the Work While podcast. Stacy Bow Miller, I believe, is her name. She is a great poet. The podcast is great, and I'm actually taking some inspiration on how they run their podcast and incorporating that into ours because they do a lot of this. They do slog notes, and it's just basically them talking about what they're going through and how they're keeping up with the writing, or if they're keeping up with the writing and things like that. It's Stacy Bow Miller and Samantha Burns of the Work While podcast. Highly recommend. They just have such great chemistry. They're so fun and smart. So that's my underrated poet, like, uplifting moment. So go listen to their podcast, the Work While podcast. Go read some of Stacey's work that you could find on her website. Samantha Burns is a fiction writer at Yado right now. So I read one of their fiction pieces. Great fiction writer as well. So keep their names in mind. Great writers, great podcasters. So there you go. My little literary citizenship for the day. And everybody, if you have anything you want to say, comment, submit some poems, whatever you need, table4deuce@gmail.com. Go to our website at www.table4deuce at or table4deuce.com. I don't know why I did that, but yeah, submit some poems to the seat so we can give you our honest opinion on it and maybe publish it. Go listen to our podcast. Go, send us suggestions, whatever. And until then, we will see you next time.
You next.
Bye.
Ah, the sun is we're recording at this time of day. Like it's
Yeah, you're just getting blasted.
like a David Bowie poster. Like I don't know, like some of the lighting.
That's like special effects.
Who stayed upstairs? I fried for an hour. Frank,
But
no.